Hey, folks, welcome to another edition of Broken Brains with your host, Bruce Parkman, the official podcast of the Mac Parkman Foundation, where we talk about the issue of repetitive brain trauma from two perspectives: repetitive head impacts from contact sports and repetitive blast exposure from military service, and what these repetitive conditions do to the brain health, the mental health, and well-being of our kids, athletes, and veterans. Why is this important? Because the connection between repetitive brain trauma and mental illness and brain damage is not taught in any of our military institutions of training and is unknown in our nursing, doctor, and psychological populations, making you the first line of defense. And we bring on these amazing guests so you can have all the firsthand knowledge you need in order to make decisions for those that you love. Today, whether they like it or not, two more amazing guests. And of course, they're going to be amazing guests because they're Green Berets, man. That's where it all comes from, man. We have Russell and Peyton Smith, the founders of ROE Lab. Corey and Peyton first met training to become Special Forces medics, one of the toughest schools in the military, where they learn how to save lives in some of the harshest environments that are imaginable. After years of deployments, thousands of blast exposures, and their own experiences with traumatic brain injuries, or TBIs, they realized something important. The body can heal, but the brain needs a lot more work. They saw it in their teammates, and they felt it themselves. That's what led them to recreate ROE Labs, born out of necessity, not trend. They're building science-backed supplements that are designed to support brain health and long-term performance. Their first product, B2 Protocol, is all about helping build cognitive resilience and keeping the brain strong, whether you're on the field, the gym, or just pushing your limits every day. Their roots are in special operations, but their mission goes far beyond that, because protecting your brain is everything, something that anybody can benefit from. Peyton, Corey, welcome to the show, man. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us,
Bruce.
Cool beans, man.
Being here. Humbled that we're on a podcast. It feels so weird every time that
come on,
see your
man.
face on a screen.
That's kind of that, like that whole quiet professionals thing, Special Forces. I hated that term when it came out, but sometimes we kind of fulfill it. So why don't we start with you, Peyton? Tell us a little bit about your background. How'd you end up getting into the military, and a little bit about yourself, and then we'll follow up with Corey. And tell me how you guys met. What's going on?
Yeah, so I got my undergrad in mechanical engineering, and like everybody else, decided that I didn't want to sit at a desk for more type A personalities, whether we want to admit it or not. So I had some siblings that were in the military, specifically a brother who knew a lot of special operations guys, and ended up signing an 18 X-ray contract. Went down to Benning, did basic training and all that, and then showed up to Bragg. And when we were at Bragg, I think I was the selection class before you, Corey, right before, and then everybody kind of gets melded together in student company. And then from there, we knocked out, at the time, it was SCT first and all that stuff, showed up at SOCM, and met Corey there in our first phase of SOCM. And then we went through every single phase together, became pretty good friends. And we're both on a kind of quest to ensure we didn't recycle anything in SOCM, which is pretty rare. And so the people that are kind of, I don't want to say putting in the work, I'm hesitant to say putting in the work, but staying after and doing stuff like that to make sure that you don't do that, tend to find each other pretty well. And so that's how we first met. And then both ended up graduating, finishing the Q course, and heading off to different groups, and then just kept in touch. And then towards the end of our time, we were both sort of getting out at the same time, and knew that we wanted to start a business together, because it's fun doing stuff with soft guys when you leave soft, and whether we want to admit it or not, it's hard leaving that community, even if you think you're the guy that's going to be totally fine and you're going to go do something else and crush it. And so we were kicking a bunch of different things around, and then something we had both sort of dealt with, where it was kind of either repetitive blast exposure in training, TBIs, etc. We both played a lot of contact sports growing up. Corey when we were kind of kicking ideas around, came up with this great idea. And he was like, hey, we have all this literature and all this science that says we should be taking a couple of different things to kind of help mitigate the risk of this, especially while you're in and you're exposed to it. But it's a very fractured protocol. No one is sort of on the same page. Everyone is sort of recommending similar things. But there's a general alignment on doses, but not like, a ton of concrete information out there about how you should be doing it, depending on the different dietitians and specialists that you talk to. And while group and Navy Special Warfare and all these other kind of human performance elements within these units are getting a lot better about it for sure, there's not a simple all-in-one way to do it. And from spending time in special operations, the military teams, whatever you want to call it, I feel like everybody notices that it's with the high kind of pace that we work at, if it's not something that's easy to do and maintain, then most guys are kind of going to let it fall by the wayside, for better or for worse. It's just one of those cans you end up kicking down the road. And so Corey was like, hey, I think this is a problem that we can easily solve. Let's solve it. Is the short yet long version of it by how I just talked about it.
All right. And Corey, what do you got to add to that story? How'd you get started? How'd you end up in the military?
Yeah, man, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to join the military, and that dream kind of evolved over time. And there's some pararescue in there for a bit, infantry, maybe I'll be a pilot. Um, and I settled on Navy SEAL. Yeah.
Of course you did.
And yeah, of course. I have a book. I still have this book that I got outside of this bookstore. It's Navy SEAL. It's the picture book. I mean, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. This is before it was cool, before all the movies came out, before all the hair gel jokes. And I had a contract to join the Navy right after college, and then unfortunately injuries derailed that dream. So I was 21 years old. That didn't happen. I was working at a CrossFit gym at that time and living a pretty good life, and I kind of just pushed that dream to the side, started exploring other things. But that idea of serving in some capacity, I just couldn't let it go. Um, so man, fast forward, I tried to join the Navy again, and they were like, "You're too old. You've had too many surgeries. Like, get lost, idiot." I was like, "God dang, I'm only 26 years old. Like,
Like,
I feel like I'm doing okay." But I had the good fortune to meet, man, what was it? It was the Duskin and Stevens Foundation had a beef and beer event out in Southern Pines, and I went out with some friends of mine, and I got to meet a bunch of SF guys. I was like, man, this might be an alternative path that probably actually, looking back, aligned a lot better with what I was looking for out of the military. Um, since at the ripe age of 27, I enlisted in the Army and went through the whole Q course, just like Peyton talked about. We met, I think he said soccer, but I think we met while we were all grouped together, and like, you can't even walk because your feet are broken after selection, and you're hobbling around like a bunch of 90-year-olds getting yelled at from the cadre in the windows. What the fuck are you guys talking about? Parade rest. Oh God, dude, why did I do this? Um, yeah, but went off to fifth group after the Q course, spent a couple years there. After my second trip, let's see, that was to Syria. I got home. My daughter was born 2 weeks after I got home from that. I was like, I need to be at home more. Um, and decided to apply to grad school's MBA programs. The good fortune to be admitted to Northwestern's program, and spent a year at 19th group while I was trying to really figure out and really make that decision of, do I want to continue this life in some capacity, or do I just want to cut all ties? Yeah, I decided to cut all ties, do the school thing full time, and try to spin this ROE Labs up. And Peyton said I said that it was an easy problem to solve, and it's turned out to be a little bit more challenging than we set out, but I think we figured it out. So here we are.
well, it's going to be a problem that's going to be around for a while, man, because the military's got to do its job. So what
Yeah.
was it about? I mean, both of you are, Green Berets, been around, probably a couple box trips, whatever. Talk about your thoughts on repetitive blast exposure right now. This term, I was on General Fenton's brain health team here down at US SOCOM. It's something that's it's It's something that obviously is a big problem. It's not only with the veteran population that's left, but also with the ongoing population. What do we do going forward, training and all that? And we're not going to get away with it. I mean, we're not going to get away from it. I mean, there are ways to mitigate. But talk about your thoughts to our audience about repetitive blast exposure. We have a lot of civilians and athletes out there that are very, not too familiar with it, other than they know that we go through a lot of blast exposure in our careers. So talk a little bit about it and the concerns that we have, and then we'll talk about how there's a lot of hope, including your product on the other side. But let's talk about blast exposure a bit. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Peyton, you take it first. Go.
Next time I'll pick one of you and we'll start there. My apologies.
You're good. Yeah,
Okay.
I first started noticing it when our team was going through cephalic. So I had a bunch of TBIs growing up that I may or may not have told the military about. I also fractured my skull when I was younger. And we would finish, I got a little dent in my head, which, knowing what I know now, kind of changes things a little bit. I still wouldn't have done anything different. And I don't think anybody would if you told them after, like, hey, knowing the risks, would you still do it? The answer is always yes, which is a part of a big reason why you need something like this to help mitigate this stuff, because people are going to do it anyways. But we would finish a training day, blowing a bunch of doors, whatever. And I would get home, or like the next morning I would wake up and I would just be like a little foggy, or especially on the weekend. I remember I was like, I just don't want to do anything this weekend. I was just like kind of depressed. And I talked to some of my teammates about it, and they were like, no, I feel like relatively fine. Knowing what I know now, there's a lot of research literature out there that once you disrupt the brain-blood barrier, which tends to happen when you fracture your skull, you're sort of at like a predisposition for these things affecting you a lot more, and kind of having like an amplified kind of effect on it. I don't know if the right way to phrase it would be like advances your timeline, as far as need less exposure or whatever. I don't think there's science out there to support that, but I think it does affect it a little bit. And so that's when I really started looking into different things, and I had like a supplement guru on my team. It was all about everything at Thorne and knew about all these different supplements. And he was all about creatine and taking a bunch of creatine. And I was always kind of good about it, but never super consistent. So that's when I really started focusing on taking creatine. And then went on another deployment that was just, non-combat. We were training guys over in Europe. We were doing a lot of cross-country skiing. Absolutely destroyed my head twice, because you don't really wear helmets when you're doing cross-country skiing. I mean, you can if you want to, but like everybody else in SF, rule number one is A, look cool, and B, wearing a helmet all the time sucks. Even if it's like the Team Windy Arctic ones. So we didn't really wear it during the day. We're towing these like 120-pound sleds. So we were doing one demo day where the Swedes were showing us how to cross-country ski, which those guys are on like another level. They grow up on those things. And I was taking like a 110-pound sled down this like huge incline of built snow that they had, just because we wanted to see if we could do it. Skis go out from under me, sled hits me in the back of the head. Actually had it on video, funny enough. And everybody asked me if I'm fine, and of course I'm fine, because I don't want to miss anything or go do whatever. We're also in Sweden. I have no idea how we're going to do any of that stuff. And then had something similar happen about another 2 months, not even 2 months, probably a month later, which, if you know anything about concussions are not the end of the world. You can recover from them. They do become a little bit more dangerous if you get another concussion in what you want to call like the refractory period, or whatever you want to call it, which is exactly what I did again. So I came back from that trip, and everything kind of just came, I don't want to say crashing down, but was not good. I wasn't sleeping at all. I remember I would get into bed at like 9, because I was like, I need to sleep, and I would probably fall asleep around like 1 or 2 a.m. I would wake up at 5, I would go work out, and I just kept my discipline and everything else consistent, and just built up this probably massive sleep debt. And then finally hit a breaking point where I was like, I can't, like, something's got to give here. Ended up going to Intrepid Spirit. They did like all this stuff. And that's when I really started taking it seriously and becoming very consistent with the creatine. And then as we looked more into this, and as we learned more doing ROE labs, it was really like digging into the literature. I remember we spent 2 weeks when we first initially started doing this, and we probably found like 40 or 50 research articles on PubMed, and we kind of made this internal literature review for ourselves as we were figuring out how we were going to formulate this. And what came out of it was the 5 grams of creatine. You need an insane amount of DHA and EPA. I say insane; it's really not insane, but it's much more than what the typical supplement on the market gives you per dose. So now I take 3 like full monthly doses, or go through 3 full monthly doses of DHA and EPA a month, 2 grams of DHA a day, and 1 gram of EPA, and then vitamin D. And I noticed that it started helping a lot. I think I would attribute to some of that being less exposure to kind of the hazards that were, creating that in the first place. But yeah, so that's when I was kind of like, hey, this stuff works. Other people should be taking this. And knowing what I know now, again, wouldn't change anything. But I would love for guys that are in a similar position to be on this path initially and not figure it out, a couple months after they get out, or right as they're about to get out, really start, diving into it.
That's a good point. I mean, we usually talk about repetitive blast exposure, repetitive impacts, but those concussions, they don't help. And, having pulled just one Archeo as a sergeant major in 10th group, once I pulled it once, I'm like, I pulled the sergeant major card out real fast on that one. I can't even ski. You bastards are crazy. I got, so I can only imagine what, those things are loaded for bear. Plus, it's crazy, man. But, yeah, I mean, to be able, like the whole Intrepid Spirit experience, which didn't exist way back in the day, the ability to take a knee, which is now recognized, is a huge improvement in recognizing that, brain health and mental health go hand in hand. And oftentimes it's not just, what we've seen or who touched us when we were kids or whatever. It's our occupations that are impacting our brains. And that knowledge is slowly getting out there, but it's got to be turned into, not only just supplementation programs. It's got to be turned into, the way we train, the way we fight, and then the way we heal as we get going on. Corey, what are your thoughts on all this, repetitive ed impacts, repetitive blast exposure? Because, I mean, and not to mention, the contact sports side of this thing, notwithstanding that a lot of SF guys have before they come in. And not to mention that we all have an octagon in every special forces group. We can hammer the shit out of each other, as well.
Beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a few thoughts to add from what Peyton said, especially on the blast side of the house. Like we were both 18 Deltas medics. I mean, some of the best trained medics in the military, and like I didn't really know shit about low level blast overpressure. And we talked a little bit about it in cephalic. You're writing your MSDs on your charges, and they're like, all they really say, the cadre, are like, just this is your MSD, and they talk about overpressure maybe a little bit, but they don't really break it down into
what's an MSD. I set up
like,
the CEFALT course for 10th group back in the day. I don't know these things, man. That's a long time. What's MSD?
Let's try probably not use acronyms. Minimum safe distance.
Okay.
So there's a calculation that you do with charges depending on the net explosive weight of the charge. And there's a certain distance you have to be away from the charge in order to be considered safe, or under a pounds per square inch threshold. These MSDs were calculated generally, depending on what method you use, in an open air scenario.
Right.
So the blast can dissipate in a full 360 degrees or whatever that is. But guess what? SF guys aren't breaching doors in the middle of a field. Like, you're in a hallway, you're in a small room, there's vehicles around you. And this goes for any sort of blast. So mortars, heavy artillery, shoulder fired rockets, or recoilless rifles like the Carl G, tanks. And anytime you're in an enclosed space, these blast waves are bouncing around off the walls. They don't just hit a wall and disappear. They hit a wall and they come back at you and they converge. And the scary thing is that, maybe if you're in an open airfield and this charge goes off, maybe it's 1 PSI. But if you're in an enclosed space, maybe you're all of a sudden exposed to 4 or 8 times that amount because of the reflection of these blast waves around the room. So I think there's a big problem, going back to your question, is lack of education. And I mean, it's nobody's fault that you got to keep track of 1,000 different things, much less let's tack on something else. I think that's a big part. They're getting better at it, the military in general, especially with this new, the 2026 NDAA that they just signed into law. There's a lot of line items in there that stipulate resources and um, what's the right word? Policy for blast exposure, whether it's monitoring or data collection or mitigation, et cetera. So that's good to see. It's just the government, it's going to take some time for it to trickle down into the end users world. Um, I think another big issue with blast exposure is like sometimes there's no immediate effect. I mean, there are times when you eat a charge, and you're like, oh, fuck, like I got rocked on that one. You feel a little weird, but like Payne said, you just go through the door, keep doing, keep dropping rounds, whatever. Um, but a lot of times there's not an immediate effect, or maybe you have a slight headache that disappears and you don't think much of it. But over the years, it's called cumulative exposure. This stuff will add up, just like physical concussions in sports. Like you see football players all the time. It's like that's their 7th concussion. That's just fucking serious. Can you imagine several thousand or 10,000 explosive exposures? I mean, that adds up. It just doesn't go away. Um, and then I think the hardest thing to overcome is like guys just want nothing more than to be a dude with the dudes doing cool guy shit. And like you train so hard, you sacrifice time away from home, you sacrifice your physical health, your sleep, your comfort to be a part of this team. Whether it's special forces, Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, or even the tier 1 guys. Like, I mean, you got there, you broke yourself off to get to this organization, and you kind of like, you don't want to be punished for anything. You don't want to be removed from that environment for any reason. So you just chalk this exposure up, whether it's physical hits to the head or the overpressure stuff, is just part of the job. And I think it's getting better from a cultural standpoint of like you said, take a knee. It's okay to go seek help. But I still think there's a huge part of all of these organizations that it's like, go, go, go. Don't be a pussy. Put your helmet on, get back to work. And that's good. Like we have to maintain lethality, but I think there's better ways that we can do this so guys can stay in the job longer and then leave healthier at the end.
So, I mean, and everything you just said, both you guys, man, spot on, right? I mean, it's something that we have to do, and it's something that we're not going to get aware of. So, before we start talking about, your solution, right, and what you bring to the fight, what does this impact have? Or is it what impact is it having now on the brains and well-being, not only of our soldiers, but right now on the force? Now, Peyton, you alluded to some of the impacts that you had, lack of sleep and all that, and from a brain perspective, what's going on in that magnificently complex organ when we start running blast waves and and concussive shocks, through it? Not to mention the fact that you got a dent in your head, assuming that you don't have a dent, what's going on?
So I'll try and keep it wave top and not get too much into the cellular biology of what's going on. I actually just finished my master's in computational biology, which is not cellular biology, but yeah, similar. I deal with more like genetics. So there's a couple different things going on. We can actually measure it with biomarkers. There is not enough for this in the military population. But there is a lot of studies in contact sports, like you talked about. So a couple big ones that you'll see are called GFAP, S100 beta. There's some more out there, but you can measure things like axonal shearing. So again, without getting too far into this, your brain is made up of all these different types of cells. You have neurons that are connecting. You have axons, and shearing is exactly what you think it is. It's if you take something like my hand and the top of my hand goes this way and the bottom of my hand goes this way. And obviously that's not good for something that's very delicate. And so when you get exposed to these blast waves, or when you get a concussion, or when you get anything else, like, you're going to have a couple different things. You're going to have that shearing, you're then going to have cell damage, and you're going to have cell death. And so when all those things happen, your brain is rapidly trying to fix all of this. And so what do you need to fix things? You need a couple different things. You have a ton of inflammation, so your brain doesn't like that. It wants to deal with that. So you need some sort of anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, whatever you want to call it, to deal with that. And then you have this huge energy deficit. Your brain is the most energy selfish organ. That's why when stuff pumps out of your heart, the first thing that the blood leaves, it feeds its heart first, because obviously the heart needs to get fed. And this is, I'm not trying to give an anatomy lesson, but just for some people out there that are a little more interested, your aorta comes up and over here. And so you have your coronary. Whenever you hear like massive coronary, that's because you have a blockage in your coronary, which is the main artery. Arteries carry oxygen from the heart, except for one. Again, not going to get too far into this. I'm getting too 18 Delta with this.
No, you're doing great, man. Keep going.
You feed your heart first, and then it comes up here through your carotids, and it goes to your brain next. And so your brain needs oxygen. Your brain needs air. One of the biggest things is this huge energy deficit, because if you're trying to repair anything, if you want to think about it from a weightlifting perspective, which I think a lot of military meatheads resonate with, what do you give yourself as soon as you work out? You drink 30 grams of protein or whatever. Not trying to plug those guys. I've worked out this morning, so I'm drinking that. And so your brain, in the same way, if you want to fix these cells, if you want to fix these kind of issues that are going on, is it needs energy, and you have this critical energy deficit, especially after concussion, to a lesser extent after blast waves, but you have similar kind of processes, mechanisms, chain of events happening. And so all that to say is you need energy, you need some way to help prevent this inflammation. If you want to think about it on a kind of worst case scenario, if you have some horrible head injury, and you hear the term ICP, which is intracranial pressure. So basically you have this cell death. The cell death causes inflammation. Everything is flooding in from your immune system trying to fix this. Or if you damage a blood vessel in there, that pressure and increased pressure is going to have actually a reverse effect. Now you're constricting those arteries and the capillaries and all those smaller blood vessels that are trying to feed the brain. And so now you're causing more cell death, and now you need even more things to prevent this, and you have an even larger energy deficit. So scale that down significantly. And now you have on the order of what we're talking about for concussions and kind of blast exposure. And so the large question is, how do you fix this energy deficit, and how do you kind of help? You can't prevent, but how do you help stave off this inflammation? And I'll let Corey expound on this, but that's where the creatine comes in, and that's where the DHA and EPA and vitamin D come in. And then for DHA itself, for omega-3, so DHA, I should dial this back a little bit. DHA and EPA are omega-3 fatty acids. So when you hear the term omega-3s, fish oil, there's multiple types. Omega-3s are not just one thing. There's different, what we would call fatty acids within that, without getting too far into the kind of chemical composition of them. But DHA and EPA are big ones. DHA is a big one because it is your gray matter, I believe. A significant portion of that is DHA.
10%
and
of
there's
your
this
whole brain
long-standing
is made up of DHA.
Exactly. And so there's like this long-standing myth out there that your brain like can't repair these things. I think that stems from older literature. That's not necessarily true. Your brain absolutely can, but it needs the right building blocks to do it. And in the same way that I don't want guys to hear this and be like, oh, there's no hope, like I've killed all these cells, connections, whatever. Your brain is extremely good about finding new ways to sort of circumvent this. You can, I don't want to say create new neural pathways, but find new neural pathways that essentially do the same thing. And you can come back from this, but you have to have the things in place to be able to do that and enable yourself to do that. And then I'll let Corey expound on all that.
So Corey, I mean, what Peyton, we're talking about, take it to the next step, right? Now, so we're talking about inflammation, we're talking about, energy loads decreasing on the brain. What's that doing, to the brain as as an organ, and then, expound upon what Peyton says so that our audience just understands all this chaos that's going, that when you start messing with the brain, man, chaos in a brain, the outcomes just aren't good.
Yeah, I'll approach it from a higher level view on what I've seen and what I've read about. I mean, there's the military is just not an easy life in a lot of respects. It's fun as shit. I wouldn't change anything that I did. But man, you start throwing in sleep deprivation, a shitty diet. Bruce, you mentioned that earlier. It's like I'm eating MREs, or I'm not eating, or I'm eating like Twinkies from the gas station, whatever, because you don't have time to do anything. You throw in nicotine in there, alcohol,
Big
all
one.
these self medications, and you on top of all that, you throw in repetitive, non-concussive or concussive hits to the head. Um, and you start to see a big issue with depression, anxiety, PTSD is compounded. Um, Suicide rate is much higher per capita in the military than in the civilian world. And I think a big part of these mental health issues stems from getting hit in the head. You start screwing with the brain, you're going to have problems. We see it in the NFL with the CTE information that's come out recently. There was a SWIC operator, I believe, that committed suicide recently, relatively recently. He shot himself in the heart so they could study his brain. And they found, I think this is a quote from the article, the doctor, like the worst case of CTE that he's ever seen.
And that was Dan Pearl. Yep.
Yeah, Dan Pearl. And like he just wasn't born with CTE. Like that was from a lifetime of repetitive impacts on his fast boats, overpressure exposure, and then you throw in all the other compounding factors, the lack of sleep, the alcohol, etc., and you have a big problem on your hands. And I talked about this before. It's getting better in terms of the resources out there for guys, the nonprofits, like what you guys are doing at the Mac Parkman Foundation, the Intrepid Spirits of the world, the home bases of the world, and even some medics at the ground level, at the unit level, are getting better at communicating this stuff and talking more long term and not just putting band-aids on things over and over again, which our health system as a whole is very good at. Um, but I think we need to start thinking more long term about this brain health stuff.
So when you guys started ROE, obviously you understood there was a problem, right? And the only way to solve this is by stop training, right? That ain't gonna happen. Okay, if you're an NFL football player, you got to get through your career.
Yep.
And we all know that, the brain's ability from a neuroplasticity perspective is very limited when it comes to the total aggregate amount of damage that is contained over years of these exposures. It just can't deal with it, right? The only way is to limit exposure, which ain't gonna happen. It can. When I went through Safar Tech and Safar, we didn't know what a blast shield was. It's like, what's that? We were right on those charges, on those doors, eating it. It's just how we did it back in the day. But I'll tell you, my generation never had a suicide problem. And the only suicide I am aware of, and I retired in May of 01 before the entire world left, went crazy as a very angry Vietnam vet raised sergeant major, was one guy that he was actually the master breacher at Mott Lake, at Safar Tech, at the SIF when I was in C-37 back in the day. And we didn't even know it. He was falling apart, schizophrenic, Clarence. He was getting followed by these guys. We literally brought him in to a whole bunch of our C-37 guys in Colorado Springs. Like, dude, what's the matter? Oh man, I'm being hunted, man. They're all over me. We had no idea that level of paranoia and psychosis was absolutely the indicator. That level of schizophrenia was all the damage that was being caused to his brain. And he ended up taking his life because we didn't know how to deal with it. I was like, Joe, you're crazy. No, man, no. I was like, dude, man, you are. And we thought he was really going nuts. No, he had a brain injury, which now after 9/11, with all the training and combat that you guys have seen, that your generation has seen, that level of exposure is unprecedented. And it is the primary cause of the suicide rate that we have, in my estimation, because this has never been evaluated nor assessed. And our populations, especially in concussive MOSs, from SWIC boat operators to tankers to artillery guys who have either been training or been in combat for years, all right? This can't keep up with it. And this is why stuff that you guys are working on and using and selling is so important. So you identified a problem. You both suffered from it. You've both been through it. So tell us, how did this whole ROE thing come up, and what do you guys got going on, man? Because it's sounds exciting as hell.
Yeah, let's see. I'll go back to the name. So ROE, which gets pronounced real all the time, but it was we have rules of engagement in the military, right? It's like when and how you can engage in combat with the enemy. And we just wanted to take that and apply that to at an individual level. Like everyone should have their own rules of engagement for participating in these high risk activities. Like, gotta wear your helmet, get proper sleep, proper nutrition, maybe mitigate the number of rounds that you pop off on a heavy mortar range, whatever that may be for yourself, because everyone responds to this stuff a little bit differently. Peyton could fire 100 mortar rounds in a day, and Corey could fire 100 mortar rounds in a day. I might feel fine. Peyton might be in bed for 2 days. Like
Yeah, we did
it's very
200 in a day one
individual.
time.
200
Yeah,
mortar
fun.
rounds.
Good time.
It was a little bit of an accident with the company mortars for the entire year. They
Yeah,
ended up
because
getting some
nobody
gaff for,
wanted to
but
bring him back to the ASP.
Yeah, that too. The myth of use and lose.
Yeah.
And we had every 2 years, we go to refresher as a medic. Gnomes had a 30-minute brief about, maybe it was an hour, I don't know, about dietary supplements and considerations to foster performance and then help mitigate some of these brain issues. And 3 supplements always came up in that discussion. It was creatine, omega-3s, vitamin D. But like Peyton said earlier, depending on who you talk to, the doses were different. The supplements were different. And it was honestly just like a wave top. Hey, yeah, by the way, we need to talk about supplements. All right, let's get back to trauma training. And it's like, man, this, there might be something to this. And so like we dug into the research, we started calling people and using our .edu email addresses and sending off emails of like, please talk to us. And surprisingly, a lot of these people that are at high levels of research, both in and out of the military, doctors, clinical researchers, at all levels of the military, across all branches of the military, got back to us. And most of them are relatively aligned on these 3 supplements, the creatine, vitamin D, omega-3s. And we kind of compiled a protocol based on existing protocols that are out there in terms of dosing these supplements. So we can't claim full credit for coming up with the dosing. I mean, the research says it, and these people smarter than us told us about it. We just wanted to combine it into an easy to take all-in-one formula. So something that tastes good. There's products out there, I'm not going to say what their name are, some of the tier 1 guys use, but it tastes so bad that guys just don't take it. Like it's not worth it. Described as tuna mixed with lemon lime Gatorade, which is disgusting. Sounds horrible. So that was a big problem we wanted to solve. It's got to taste good, so guys are looking forward to ingesting this every day. The second thing, you need to be properly dosed. So in terms of like an everyday dose, a maintenance dose, and then we wanted to package these ingredients together so guys could scale, and gals can scale up and down their dosing depending on what kind of exposures they're going into. If you're going to a heavy breaching school, maybe you double your dose. If you're post-injury, maybe you up your dose there. And then a third problem we want to solve was portability. Like you're always traveling, you're always on the move, whether it's leaving early to go to a cephalic range in the morning and you don't have time to take 16 pills and 2 scoops of creatine or whatever that is. or you're going on a 30-day TDY. Well, like space is usually limited, and you're always getting yelled at as a medic for having too much shit as it is. At least,
And everybody
like you
else is
can
carrying
bring,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Why do you have 18 tough boxes, dude? I don't know.
Go
Bunch
away.
of pack rats. Yeah,
Uh,
we might need this. Uh, I need this petroleum jelly. So we wanted to make it easy to travel with. Like, hey, you're going to 2 weeks of refresher. You could take 14 of these little packets with you, and you're set for those 2 weeks. Yeah, I mean, we've got to the ringer in terms of formulating this thing. There's a reason why no one's done this before. It's, I can let Peyton speak to the stability piece, but yeah, we're close. We've had some setbacks here and there, but I think we're on the right track now. Peyton, you got
well,
anything to add?
this is like I'm on my 8th company right now, so I can give you plenty of lessons on blowing yourself up. I'll save you a lot of pain. Just give me a call one day.
Nice.
We'll get on the horn. I'll talk to you about that. But that's the kind of resilience it takes to take a product to market and to be successful. So, the lessons learned besides that, I mean, you're working on something that's, that's ultimately something that's needed by the forest, because, we have to, we got to have something out there to help us out. And so, Peyton, what's this, journey been like? I mean, did you guys just contact the lab and hire a doctor? Or have you guys been like in the kitchen sink, just kind of making things happen?
Yeah, we have not been in the kitchen sink. That is like
No,
actually
a
the
little
approach
bit.
that we wanted to avoid. Yeah, well, Corey at first mixed a little things. We
Mad
approached other mixed.
scientist for a couple weeks.
Um, but yeah, we like Corey said, we had a lot of resources kind of at school and stuff, and so we talked to some of the foremost experts, like some of which are in professional sports leagues. And a couple interesting things we found out is like, and the other thing too is I just want people to know this. I feel like there's a lot of myths out there about creatine where they're like, you can't take too much, it dehydrates you, all this stuff. When I was in the Q course, if you technically got called, although I don't think anybody would ever care if they saw creatine in your barracks, but I could be wrong. You weren't allowed to take creatine. It was like a big deal, and it's all bullshit. Like we all know it's bullshit now. Creatine actually does a better job. It hydrates you. It doesn't dehydrate you. It's kind of the
Hmm.
opposite. 5 grams is a random dose that somebody decided it should be weight dependent. It's not always 5 grams. That's why, like Corey said, you would, if you're a 250-pound guy, you're probably taking 2 packets of our stuff, not just one. Um, and there are guys that we talk to that I don't want to put them in the spotlight, but work in professional sports. And they said some of their huge linemen in the NFL are taking up to 30, 40 grams of creatine, and they're fine. Really the only limiting factor is GI distress and what you can personally handle. I take like 10 to 15 grams a day. I have 7.5 grams of pure creatine I take, and then my pre-workout I think has like another 5. And if I'm feeling extra spicy for the day, because I don't take pre-workouts with creatine, I'll do like a scoop and a half to get the full pump.
Is
But I
there
digress.
I
Go ahead,
just a
Bruce.
quick question. Is there any, back when creatine first came over, because I'm a lot older than you guys. I've been lifting weights and taking supplements for 40 years, 40, 50 years now. Actually be 40. And back in the day it was like you have to have some sugar with creatine. Like it always came with some kind of, like it was always like you couldn't buy you shouldn't take creatine by itself. It always came with like some kind of flavoring because you needed sugar to do something, get it in the blood or anything like that. Is there any truth to that? I mean, that was a big myth when I was a weightlifter back in the day.
I personally am not aware of any literature that says that you have to do that. I could
Okay.
be wrong.
It's
A large part of the
pump.
glucose is, yeah, you see it in like hydrating salts a lot because it does help. It does help with hydration in general, at the right ratio. Gatorade, not to hate on Gatorade, I won't say Gatorade, but certain sugary sports drinks that you find at a gas station are not in the right ratio. But if you look at something that the military buys that is effective, like Drip Drop or even ORS, there is glucose in there, and for good reason. But for creatine itself, no. Like it's
Right.
yeah, you get a lot of random questions like that, like creatine, fish oil, vitamin D. Should you take it on an empty stomach? Do you need to take it with a fatty food? People especially ask that for vitamin D because it's fat soluble. What can and can't you take it with? I honestly don't think there's enough literature out there to say either way. But I take my creatine on an empty stomach every morning. And then I try and take my fish oil and vitamin D with a meal, but that's just personal preference, mainly because I take my fish oil from a capsule right now until ours comes out, and don't want to deal with the fishy burps if I have to. But to what you were talking about with the manufacturing and everything else,
So Corey,
I
while we wait
totally
for Peyton to come back online, the
Oh,
so what is creatine? I've never heard of creatine and its impact on the brain. It's the first time I'm hearing this. This is cool. So what are you guys finding out, Peyton? I'm sorry, I think you're back now. What
yeah, sorry.
is the impact of
It's my
creatine? I mean,
internet.
I've talked to Dr. Lewis and had about his fish oil supplementation program. I've had him on the show, and vitamin D as well. Talk to our audience about the impacts, why creatine, why vitamin D, and even EPA and DHA if you want to dive into it.
Um, I'll try and go more wave tops like Corey earlier.
All
Not
right.
to say that people don't care about the science, but it gets very long. So creatine at the end of the day is an energy source on the cellular level. That's probably the easiest way to say it. I'm sure there's some chemists out there that would rip me for saying that, but for the typical person to understand, that's the best way to do it. You have different sources of cellular energy. One of the largest ones is a molecule called ATP.
Okay.
To create ATP, it's this complex process. Your body has a couple different ways to create it. Creatine is one of the chemicals that facilitates the creation of ATP. And so when you make sure you have enough creatine, you make sure that your body always has everything necessary to make it in a more efficient way, is
Cool.
probably the best way to describe it. So like we talked about earlier with head injuries, whether it's impact, whether it's repetitive small impacts, whether it's repetitive low-level blasts, you get into this energy deficit. And just like your muscles, your brain needs a way to make energy. It loves ATP to do that. And by always having creatine, you're enabling it to make that energy it needs to recover at the highest level. And so, yeah, so one of the issues with creatine, which I actually didn't know this, is it is not stable in water. You can absolutely mix it in water and take it, totally fine, but it degrades over time. So if you're mixing it or your pre-workout at 6 a.m. and then you're taking it at 6 p.m. and you put 5 grams of creatine in there, you're probably not getting all 5 grams of creatine.
Really?
I can't tell
Good.
you exactly what that degradation curve is, and that's actually something that I didn't know until we started looking into this. Um, but for all the people wondering why there wasn't a product out there like this, it's a huge problem to solve because we're not willing to just, like you said, kitchen sink mix it, throw some creatine in this shit, and then hope that the guys that are depending on this are getting 5 grams of creatine. That's an absolute no-go for us. And so it was a big problem that we had to solve, do a bunch of stability testing, did solve. But to what you were talking about earlier, Bruce, it's like starting a business and all this other stuff, you start to run into these issues and you kind of realize why people haven't done this before. Um, but
Amen.
it's like when you get dropped into the middle of the woods in the star course and you realize the next point that you plot is 10 miles, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to quit? No, you're just going to fucking do it. So, yeah,
Good on you.
forged on. And that plus manufacturing things in gel packs is also not the easiest thing to do.
Oh,
And so dealing with all that. But to answer your second question on the vitamin D, full transparency, I am not a vitamin D expert nearly the same way as far as creatine, omega-3s, DHA, EPA. But from the people that we've talked to, there's a couple interesting studies out there. There definitely needs to be more studies on it, but they did in a couple different ones find that in a lot of people that either had, the delayed recovery or elongated symptoms due to blast injuries or concussions had lower serum levels of vitamin D. Um, and so it's one of those things where is vitamin D directly helping this recovery? Maybe. But having your vitamin D levels and serum levels at the correct level is probably going to put you in a better position if you get yourself into a situation like that. And so it's best to do that. And so for us, we actually went through a couple different formulations with the amount of vitamin D that we wanted to use, and ended up settling on what we did for the same reason that Corey talked about earlier, where you can scale it up. So the one thing with vitamin D for people out there, if you're taking it, just to know that you should get your blood levels checked. However, more is not always better because vitamin D is fat soluble, meaning when you take it, you're not just going to pee it out like some other vitamins. If you used to buy like the Muscle Farm, I actually don't even know if those guys are still around anymore. I haven't seen their stuff in forever. But if you
Normal
used to
fats.
buy like the Muscle Farm multivitamins,
Yeah.
most of that stuff you would just piss out, to be completely frank. And I remember actually taking it in college. I actually changed the color of my pee. But vitamin D is not one of those vitamins. So fat soluble, meaning it ends up being stored in fat, and it's processed in a different way. And so you can take too much, which can lead to issues. And so, A, get your blood levels checked, but B, that's why we dosed it the way we did, to kind of just get guys at a good baseline. And to give people out there an idea, if they're curious, I get my blood work done at about every 3 months now. And I was taking 5,000 IUs a day. And it was still a little low, bumped it up to 10,000, got me into 70, which is where they wanted to see me at for my vitamin D levels. And now I'm back down to 2,500 or 5,000 just as a maintenance. But as far as what it's actually doing, at the end of the day, I believe it's an antioxidant, which is a fancy way of saying an anti-inflammatory. And so beyond the bone health that it helps with, you're helping with that inflammation response that you get in the brain due to everything we've discussed for the last, 40, 50 minutes. Um, and one more aspect of that for people out there, whether you take our product or not, we also have vitamin K in it, because vitamin D, while great for bone health, it does that because it helps to basically the calcium that you intake. It helps to ensure that that's actually making it into your bones where it should be. There is an adverse effect to that, where it will also start to deposit that stuff within blood vessels, which you don't want. That's if you remember the old commercials for plaque and atherosclerosis and all that stuff. That would be, kind of the adverse side effect of that. If you take vitamin K, it basically ensures that it's only going into your bones. So, in our product, we have vitamin K in there, so you don't have to worry about it. But if you're taking it from somebody else, just know that you should probably be taking vitamin K with it, to kind of avert that.
So Corey, where are you guys at right now with I mean, you guys on the market? Are you producing people? You at scale, or where you at right now I mean, you've got, obviously an amazing idea, and we got a market. We got all the military and all the sports players out there, right? So, where you guys at right now at ROE Labs?
We oh man, we'll just say we hit a hiccup and had to switch some things. Didn't have to start from ground zero, but we had to start fresh on
Okay.
with a different manufacturer, we'll say. Um, and so yeah, we're in the R&D phase right now. We should be getting samples next week. And if they're good, which I think they will be, we'll go into production, at least a pilot run, to get some end user feedback from people like yourself and those still doing the job. And then after that, it's off to the races. So man, we keep saying that I'm just not going to give you a date because it's been blown back or pushed back like 50 times now. So we're close. Well, I'll leave it at that.
That's good. I mean, no, man, and I absolutely, I'll gladly participate in anything that impacts this old ass brain. I'll tell you right now, because it's been through a lot, and and I'd like to, understand more on how we can help, because you're, absolutely, both of you are living from experience, and you're serving others from that experience, and that's so important to our community, given the impacts that we're now understanding, our veterans are going through, man. And we have no idea how many, well, all we know is that over 99% of our veterans out there have not been assessed for their brain health. And we have to make brain health a priority, man. If we could prioritize brain health like we prioritize cardiovascular health and neurological health, I mean, you go to the doctor, listens to your heartbeat, listens to your lungs, hits your knee with that flipping hammer. Why can't we have something? I mean, there's all kinds of technologies out there. You can, we talked to a couple of them. You put a helmet on your head, it gives you a printout. Either you got to go see a neurologist or you don't. And then you got the traumatic encephalopathy syndrome protocols, 4 simple questions that can be used for blast exposure, can indicate that a guy needs to go to Intrepid Spirit. And most of our medics aren't even aware of that right now. And so there's so much to do, and you're providing such a valuable service. So as we close out, I'm going to ask you to be like Navy SEALs, man. Like talk about what's going on. What are the next steps, and where can people go to just be aware of the product, so when it is available, either for market research and testing or for actual purchase, they know where to go. So talk about yourselves, man. No offense to my Navy SEAL buddies, but I gotta say that.
Well, you got to give them crap.
Gotta have,
Gotta give 'em crap.
No, go ahead.
No, it's I appreciate the opportunity to plug ourselves. But right
Plug
now
away.
we're on Instagram. It's ROE.labs. And, our mission on Instagram is really to push education right now. Um, so go to Instagram if you're interested in reading the research that we dig up. Eventually we'll do our own research. That's why we tacked on the word labs on ROE. So we're not the next bro science vet supplement company. No offense to those guys, but try something a little different. And then roelabs.com is our website. You can go there, you can put your email in, and you'll be the first to know when the product is ready with a nifty little discount as well. Yeah, so that's the plan. We'll go through our website initially, and then maybe down the road we'll jump into some more omni-channel retail
We'll
type
find you in
scenarios.
GNC someday, man. All good.
Ooh,
Never
In the
know.
research section.
Never know, man.
Yeah,
you
the
never know.
the only other thing I'll add on to that, because Corey did a great job, is just if you're a dude on a team right now and you're worried about, I was so terrified of getting pulled off a team, going to an SMU selection, everything else, like even if you don't have any combat points, I don't have any combat points. It is literally you're building it up in your head that if you go seek help or you go to behavioral health or you go to intrepid spirit or whatever, that it's going to ruin your life. It won't. Ended up doing it, and everybody on the team was like, yeah, who fucking cares, dude? Like, you're not going anywhere, you're not off the team, like, you're fine, no one cares. And no one
Knock it
wants to, that solution is, I guarantee you, a million times better than some dude that you went through the Q course with getting a text being like, hey, so-and-so took their life. And so just, it's not the end of the world. You will be fine. There are ways to mitigate this stuff. And if you get help, it will help. And then you can likely continue doing the job that you love, especially if you understand. So,
Peyton, Corey, I just want to add on that too, is that if you are struggling in any way, shape, or form, the hope that's out there right now is enormous. What we've learned since my son died, the ways we can heal the brain from brain supplementation programs, just like we're talking about here, ROE Labs. Other outpatients, procedures like stellate ganglion blocks that are available, all the electronic modalities and HBOT and TMS and MERT that all out there. All of these are improving brain health. All of them are legal. All of them are accessible, and there's foundations to pay for this. And so while we work on getting the military more aware and making these, like every SF group should have its own, just go take a dive in the HBOT tank, man, for a couple hours, right? You just got done with SFAUC, take a nap, read a book, right? Eventually, all this technology will make it in because we're not going to stop fighting wars. And we have to maintain the lethality that we have established, the dominance that we have. And unfortunately, that takes doing our job. And as the military works on mitigating those impacts through training and exposure, we still have to deal with the impacts of that and on our brains and the physiological outcomes that we see. And sometimes that is mental illness. And we all know that mental illness has been associated with damage to key parts of that brain, whether it's the prefrontal cortex or temporal lobes, that's been documented for 40 years. So take care of yourself. You're struggling, please talk to somebody, go offline, whatever you got to do. There's hotlines. You can call our foundation, go to ROE Labs, man, ask them where to go, right? But don't eat it. It's the last thing anybody wants you to do, man. But Peyton, Corey, cannot thank you enough for coming on the show, man. Man, the Green Berets are running, just the Spec Ops guys that are out there doing amazing things. All right, it's awesome, man. And I cannot thank you enough for taking, your experience and turning this into a product that's going to change lives. Cannot thank you enough for your dedication to our community. And I wish you, all the blessings and joy in your journey and all the success in the world, guys.
thanks, Bruce.
Bruce, really appreciate that. And one more thing, if we have some time.
Jump on it, man. Just plug away.
Yeah, coming from the soft world, it's easy to stay in that mindset. And I just want to say that like this problem isn't specific to special operations. I mean, if the conversations we've had through Instagram with the outreach we've gotten from like mortarmen, artillerymen, like some of those guys are exposed to way more blast pressure than I was ever exposed to as an SF guy. And I don't think they get enough credit. And building off what you were talking about, Bruce, about reaching out for help, I think a lot of these guys and gals that aren't in soft feel like they don't have the resources like we had, which they don't a lot of times. And I just want to say, like, if anyone's out there, please, this isn't just a soft problem. Like, we see you guys. Like, reach out to us, reach out to Bruce over at Broken Brains and Mac Parkman. Um, and I mean, tons of other foundations out there that are willing to help. So you guys aren't alone.
Yeah, a great point, Corey. And our message is for every veteran out there and first
Yeah.
responders that are on SWAT teams that are out there. I mean, we've had guests on here identifying our first responders have, they take a lot of blast, and not only they
Yeah.
take a lot of hit, they're rolling around fighting bad guys, as much as you guys are in the octagon, man. I mean, they're taking it, and there's a cost for that. And I think what we're all saying is that once we identify, that pain and that threshold, we have to write the check to pay for that cost. And I want to know more about your labs because we are writing legislation that are covering supplementation products, and we want to add your supplement to that list. So make sure we get, all the information we need. We want to add it to our legislation as it goes forward to make sure it's covered. But Peyton and Corey, thank you so much. Another great episode of Broken Brains, man. Again, keep running to these guys. Hats off to Denny for finding them. And remember, okay, as we wind down, get to the website and get your free darn book. Look how thin that is, okay? Even, I was going to make another Navy SEAL joke. They just write books. I don't know if they read them, but anyways. I just rewrote this thing. I spent 6 months with more research. Get it. Be the most informed parent out there and understand what these contact sports are doing to our children with developing brains while we work on all the other measures to improve that. Like us, subscribe to us, please. Find our app on the Google and Head Store Head Smart, the only app with repetitive impacts on it. Remember, our summit on repetitive brain trauma. Corey and Peyton, come on out September 16th and 17th at the Center for Advanced Medical Learning and Simulation here, University of South Florida in Tampa. We got a great golf tournament. We're going to be partnered with the Task Force DAGA to go ahead and raise money for services for these folks. We're doing a lot. We all have to do it together. So please take care. Remember, if you got children, they only got one melon, take care of those things, man. We'll catch you all later. God bless you all. And we'll see you next time on Broken Brains, the official podcast of the Mac Parkman Foundation. Take care.